Hoy there, I'm Mr. McFacepunch. You can call me Chainsaw. Let's talk about Dragon's Dogma 2 Dark Arisen. The purpose of this video is twofold. One, we're going to lay out the story we have set up so far. Two, I'm going to give you some of my speculation. If you have not played Dragon's Dogma 2 yet, and you're just getting into it, you'll want to leave this video alone. We're going to be talking about all sorts of Dragon's Dogma 2 spoilers. Now, there are some things to understand about speculation. When looking at and considering speculation, you have to sift through the stuff born of a desire to connect the new content to the established world and worldview, and the stuff that's basically just what somebody wants to see. Both are valid and fun to talk about, but I'm mostly interested in the first kind. So that's what I'm going to try to do. Another thing to understand about speculation is that it's usually going to be wrong. Dragon's Dogma is really good at throwing curveballs that you wouldn't have been able to guess from the previous works. Like, there's nothing in Dragon's Dogma 1 to suggest any part of the story of Dark Arisen. There's nothing in Dragon's Dogma 1 that would suggest that Dragon's Dogma 2 would reveal that the brine is actually the destructive force of oblivion. It's basically just a glorified no swimming sign in Dragon's Dogma 1. Back when Dragon's Dogma 2 was announced, I made some speculation based on the Dragon's Dogma 2 logo. Based on very intentional changes, the spikes on the back of the jaw instead of on the chin, the coiled horns, the emphasized crown of horns, the thicker fingers on the wings, I concluded that it was a new kind of dragon. But the unscarred heart means that it wasn't made from an arisen, so I made two guesses. It was either a transcendent, higher form of dragon, or it was going to be a special dragon made from the false arisen teased in the trailer. I even worked out a whole story path as to how that would play out. Then it turned out that the logo dragon for Dragon's Dogma 2 was Nex. I'm not going to do a huge lore dive on Nex right now, but he's literally the image of the role of dragon granted to Oblivion. So the guess about it being a transcendent dragon was right. The guess about the dragon being from a false arisen was wrong, even though that was the thought I put more effort behind. Point being, even when you're very familiar with the setting and worldview and you carefully analyze what's in front of you in that context, you can still be wrong. But that's the best chance you have at getting it right. So, operating on that, let's dig in. First, we'll lay out everything we know for sure, starting with Norgon. On the website, it says, Norgon serves as the stage for this new adventure. Once a prosperous region of the Kingdom of Vermund, it was abandoned many years ago for reasons unknown. Long has it been since any soul traveled its paths. Blanketed in heavy snow, these frigid lands are home to savage hordes and creatures of unbelievable power. Those who are capable of vanquishing such fearsome foes, or those who possess a keen eye for exploration, will find themselves rewarded with powerful relics. This icy realm's unforgiving nature will truly test the Arisen's resolve. So, Norgon was once a part of Vermund, but for some unknown reason was abandoned, and now it's overrun with savage hordes and creatures of unbelievable power. The Japanese version of that part says, hostile barbarians and mighty magical beasts beyond human ken. I kind of like that description better, but both are true. These guys are probably the hostile barbarians, and well, we definitely saw some magical beasts in the trailer. And for some reason, this harsh environment produces these relics, which require rift crystals to appraise, which means they're of a mystical persuasion. Norgon is actually hinted at in the base game of Dragon's Dogma 2 in this loading screen. It says, the north of the continent is said to be home to an ancient nation, but records of its existence are scarce, and there has been no contact with its people for over a century. People thought this might have been the Hyperborea, mentioned in the Hyperborean Lorica, but the facts obviously line up better with Norgon, and so it was a sneaky little tease. That's pretty cool. That's pretty much all we know on Norgon so far. It used to be a part of Vermont, lost contact over a century ago, and now it's crawling with stuff that wants to kill you. Exquisite. The Fallen Dragon seems to be the big bad guy of the DLC, unless there's some secret super boss or something. The Fallen Dragon is described as undying, and he certainly looks very zombie-ish. Flesh rotting off, empty eye sockets, exposed ribcage. Very zombie-ish. He has the size and form of a true dragon, but there's some variance with his horns, which split into 4 points. He also has a blue glow where his heart should be, and that matches the blue flame that he spews. We also see him spew a ghosty white something into the ground, which summons a horde of undead guys. Very cool stuff. Can't wait to beat this guy up. This lady is named Ire. Our journey will see us join forces with this edgy, dragon-hunting tomboy wife. She's also motivated to figure out what's going on with the Fallen Dragon, but we don't know what's behind that motivation. We do know that she feels the Fallen Dragon is her burden alone to shoulder. This figure sitting in the throne is also Ire, just with a helmet on. We can tell by taking note of this little metal piece here, the fur on her armor, and her sleeves. Then, in this scene, without her helmet, we can see that same metal piece, the same fur, and then in this picture, we see that her sleeves match the one on the throne. So, what's she doing on a throne? I don't know. That's for the speculation segment. It may or might not have relevance, but the name Ire means protection, help, and mercy in Old Norse. It's the name of either a Valkyrie or a goddess. It's disputed which of those she actually is, but we don't actually know how much bearing that's going to have on her story, so that's more or less just a fun fact. That's pretty much what we know of the story so far, so let's get into speculation. First things first, something I haven't seen anyone comment on yet. They've been using this line, "Your unwritten epic begins." The term unwritten is loaded with meaning in Dragon's Dogma 2, especially when talking about a story. At the end of DD2, in the unmoored world, we wrench the world away from the gaze of the watching one, and when we plunge the Godsbane in the heart of Next, the end of the tale was unwritten. All of reality is a story, and the writing is fate. If this tale is an unwritten one, then it may be that Norgon isn't under the influence of the Great Will. That's if this line is actually related to the story, and not just some goofy marketing language, which it could be. This is just speculation. Then, let's talk about the Fallen Dragon. Now, there's this phenomenon that's been common in the Dragon's Dogma community for a long time. Every time there's a dragon, it's always the Ur-Dragon. Diamond is actually the Ur-Dragon. The Lesser Dragon is actually the Ur-Dragon. Nex is actually the Ur-Dragon. Now, of course, the Fallen Dragon is actually the Ur-Dragon. I really don't think he is. I think people just really like the concept of the Ur-Dragon and really want the narrative to expand on it, so they project that desire on whatever the new thing is. But I don't see any good reason to think the Fallen Dragon has anything to do with the Ur-Dragon. At least not yet, but I don't think we will. You may say, but Chainsaw, he looks spooky. Ur-Dragon looks spooky. But the Ur-Dragon doesn't look spooky because he's undead. He's not. He looks spooky because he's incredibly hard to kill due to the many hearts he's taken, turning into vital spots for him. As long as one remains, he is sustained. So even when he's obliterated to the point where bone is exposed, he's still alive. The Fallen Dragon is undead. The Ur-Dragon is just hard to kill. The Ur-Dragon has a bunch of vital points that each sustain him. The Fallen Dragon only has the one vital point, and it's a different color than normal. Also, we don't know if the revival mechanic for the Ur-Dragon is canon or not. If the mechanic is canon, this is 100% not the Ur-Dragon, because the Ur-Dragon would revive in exactly the same way every time. If it's not canon and the Ur-Dragon is canonically killed by the True Arisen, it's either no evidence or evidence again. Either he's dead forever and couldn't come back as the Fallen Dragon, or he starts back at 0 and uses some means similar to a cursed dragon to revive himself. But literally any dragon could do that, so that wouldn't be any evidence to differentiate the fallen dragon as the Ur dragon. I really think the fallen dragon is its own thing with its own story. Which brings up another bit of speculation I've been seeing. People have been pointing out that the nose looks like the nose of the dragon face on Awakened Daimon, and using that to suggest that this dragon is actually the dragon portion of Daimon. That's cool, and it feels more real than the Ur dragon speculation, but it really just doesn't follow. All true dragons have that beak. Most of them just have skin on it. Even the destroyed version of the Ur dragon has more skin on the beak than the fallen dragon. If you look side by side where the nostrils are on a true dragon, and imagine that part without skin, it'd just look like this. So, to point at the beak and say, it's the Diamond Dragon, follows just as much as pointing to the Dragon's Dogma 2 dragon's wings and saying, see, look, it has wings, just like Diamond, it's the same guy. It just doesn't follow. But there are a couple points in favor of this theory. The inclusion of the Dark Arisen Design Works art in the loading screens that show Daimon, that's one. That might be a hint or tease that Daimon could be involved, but it's very thin. And the DLC just being called Dark Arisen, again, might also lend itself to that, but again, it's very thin. Really, all of the connections Dragon's Dogma 2 has to Dark Arisen might be able to be interpreted as Daimon having something to do with the world. It's just really, really shaky. Like, there's too much guesswork. Nothing directly ties. So, I'd give the Ur Dragon theory a pretty solid nuh-uh, but I'd give the Diamond Dragon theory a shoulder shrug and a maybe. There's something there, even if I don't feel like it's very solid. Now, I'm not just here to poop on other people's thoughts. I'm here to give mine. So, I'm still stuck on the Fallen Dragon being something similar to a cursed dragon from Bitter Black Isle. I touched loosely on this in my Dragon's Dogma 2 trailer reaction video, but I'll go a little more in depth here. Let me explain what a cursed dragon actually is. They have an entry in the Dark Arisen Design Works book that says, designed as a zombie dragon, it is attracted to the meat of corpses. Bitter Black Isle, having claimed the lives of many arisen, is suffused with large amounts of rift essence. The dead body of the dragon absorbs the rift essence in the air, crystallizes it, and is animated by the crystal's power. The Dark Arisen Design Works book is all in Japanese, but the gracious Liz of Kutan Cosplay, who also translated the beginning, translated it for us. What a champion. Anyway, the cursed dragon is a dragon who had its heart destroyed, but was able to live on after death because it created a makeshift heart out of the rift in the atmosphere of Bitter Black Isle. To me, when I see a big ol' zombie dragon, it's hard not to think of a cursed dragon. Then the blue glow in the fallen dragon's chest may be indicative of some kind of replacement heart. That sort of thing could normally only really happen in Bitter Black Isle, or something similar in nature like the Everfall. But this would be our first time seeing a true dragon as a cursed dragon. They were always lesser before, so we don't know what kinds of limitations they would really have. It might also be possible that someone provided the dragon with an artificial heart, but I think you'd need something like forbidden magic to do that, and research on that only started like 40 years before the in-game events of Dragon's Dogma 2. And if the fallen dragon coincides with Norgon being cut off, it would have happened over a century ago. But we do see a Dark Bishop bring a cursed dragon to life by his own power in Dragon's Dogma 1, which had no forbidden magic at all. So it's still possible the fallen dragon might be puppeted by someone else. It either possesses a particularly defiant will, or it's being controlled by someone through some sort of dark art. That's what I think on the fallen dragon. Now let's talk about Ire. Again, there's some weird speculation around Ire that she's actually a pawn. This kind of thing is a lot like the Ur Dragon speculation. Every dragon is always the Ur Dragon, and every character is always a pawn. Festi, pawn. Dragon's Dogma 1 protag, pawn. DD2 protag, also pawn. I don't know why, but that's a really common thing to throw out there. From what I've seen, people have been pointing to her voice and saying she sounds like a pawn, but like, I don't know. She's just British, dude. But really, it wouldn't matter even if one of the pawn voice actresses did voice Ire. Lots of voice actors voice multiple characters. Saying Ire's a pawn because of her voice is like saying Glindweir is the Dragonforged because of his voice. It just doesn't follow. I don't know. I don't get it. What I do get is that we see Ire sitting in a throne, and she feels the fallen dragon is her sole responsibility. To me, that would suggest that she's an Arisen, and is probably the one who originally fell the dragon who turned into the fallen dragon when it rose again. Speaking of which, we have this image of Vernworth burning. At first I thought it was that Norgandian castle, and people were just saying it was Vernworth out of blind speculation. But then I saw a picture lined up of Vernworth at roughly the same angle, and it definitely is Vernworth. Look at the parapets on the top of the castle, look at the fountain down here, and just overall, the pattern matches. It is Vernworth. But why? How? The blue flames tell you that it's definitely the work of the fallen dragon, because we see the same blue flames surrounding him in this scene here. This event could be a few things. This could be a contemporary event brought on to the Vernworth we know and love by the fallen dragon, but typically these types of DLC leave the main game alone as much as possible, so I don't think it's that. It could be a what-if scenario, like a prophecy to avoid or a dream that comes as a warning, but that's kind of boring, so I hope that's not it. What I think it could be, and kind of want it to be, is a Vernworth from another world. This is how it's laid out in my head. Ire defeats her dragon. Fanfare ensues. She ascends to the throne. All is well. Then, the dragon she thought she fell rises again as the fallen dragon, and lays waste to her Vernworth. Ire pursues the fallen dragon, and it leads beyond the rift, where Ire and the fallen dragon end up in another world. Dragons do have time-space manipulation stuff via rift manipulation, and the Arisen can literally do whatever they want if they have the right mind for it, so it's possible. Then their hapless trouncing of space and time pollutes the area, and they end up with excess rift to corrupt the land. That's how we would get the relics and the more dangerous monsters. Now, that's probably 99% wrong, but it feels like it has a good groove that connects what we know so far. The stuff of that I feel is really solid, or at least pretty solid, is that Ire either is or was Arisen. She might no longer be Arisen since we don't see her with any pawns, and she is probably the one who originally fell the fallen dragon because of the throne and her insistence on the fallen dragon being her burden. It being a burden, but feels it's her responsibility. Like it's something that's her fault or she should have already taken care of. And the fallen dragon is not a cursed dragon specifically, but something of a similar nature. I'd feel way less confident in the claim that the fallen dragon is just a straight-up true dragon version of a cursed dragon. It feels like there's way too many shenanigans going on for it to be that clean. The burning Vernworth thing, I have no clue what's going on there, just that it is Vernworth and it is burning, and it definitely was the work of the fallen dragon. It's fun to say it's a Vernworth from a different world, and Ire and the fallen dragon are both from another world, but that's definitely a little fantastical. That's my early thoughts on it. I can't wait to see what it has in store. I'm going to be unraveling mysteries like a fat kid unraveling candy on Halloween. I really hope they do a better job of communicating the story in DD2 Dark Arisen than in the base game. They set up so many opportunities to provide narrative and just didn't engage with any of them as much as they should have. I like the puzzle PC storytelling. It makes me feel like Big Brain Sleuth Man uncovering secrets, but the puzzle pieces have to actually be there. Anyway, that's all I got for you. I'm going to be slamming my head against the DD1 lore run and see how far we can get before October. Once the DD2 DLC is out, I'm going to switch to a playthrough of that for very obvious reasons. The first run might not be a lore run per se, but you already know that I'm going to be digging in deep for those juicy secrets. Thanks for hanging out. Till next we meet, one foot after the next. Come what may.